Hi guys, so in this video I want to talk you through why in 2024, end of 2023, I've decided to upgrade one of my cameras to an A7RV. So to give you a little bit of background, I mainly do wedding videos but sometimes do photography as well, and in 2023 I took in quite a few bookings going forward for 2024 that were hybrid bookings where I'll be providing both photo and video. What I'd previously done at my hybrid weddings in the past would be have my dual harness on, have two cameras, typically a wide lens on one and a telephoto or medium length lens on the other, and I would use the mode dials to switch between pre-saved settings. And while this works quite well, what I did find is it was a bit of a nuisance if in certain situations, for example, if you're in quite low light, and I'd have my variable ND filter on and I would scoot that to the lowest setting to get good video, but then when you switch to photo mode, you've already got an ND filter on there, and unless you're going to unscrew that and take that off, you could be shooting at a higher ISO than you need to be in those indoor, more challenging light situations. Another issue would be when you're outside and maybe backlit situations. With the variable NDs I have, you can't get the lens hood onto the camera with the ND on it. So any flaring or ghosting that I'm not a huge fan of with certain lenses, that would be getting into all my photos for situations where the couple were backlit and I still wanted to maintain that 180-degree shutter rule with the video side. So in 2023, what I decided to do was buy the Tamron 35-150 in the hope that one camera body could be completely for photos on the Tamron and the other camera body could be completely for video, and I wouldn't have to worry about ND filters on my photo camera or no lens hood or switching quickly between the dials and readjusting for light or white balance, etc. Photos I tend to shoot in auto white balance. Video I try to get it as close as I can in camera because you don't have that much room or flexibility in post. So there was other wee nagging issues of trying to use the same camera for both photo and video. And what I found with the Tamron, if you've seen any of my other videos, is that while it was a great lens for 99% of the day, two main issues made me sell that lens. One was when people were walking down the aisle, I found that it was struggling to keep up and get razor sharp photos, and I just prefer primes. I prefer having the ability to go down to f1.8 or f1.4, the look that can give you in certain situations and the contrast that primes typically get, I find just gives you a bit more wow to your photos. So where that left me was looking at the Sony A7RV with the thinking of I could use APS-C mode to turn one of my primes into a 2 focal length lens at any part of the day. And typically most of my wedding photos that I really like and spend most of the day with are either at 24, 35 or 50 and occasionally an 85, but I did have a couple of reservations over getting the R5. First reservation I had was the high ISO performance, because obviously on a 62 megapixel camera, I think it is, I'd seen contrasting reviews on how that high ISO performance was, so that held me off quite a bit as well. The second reason was pretty much, do I want to pay that much money for a camera that I'm not needing 62 megapixels on? I thought, I don't want to be having that much storage space taken up. How would the buffer be if I'm firing off huge file sizes all day long? And that was another concern I had. But I found a video online that actually showed you could set the R5 to medium raw, which gives you, I think, 26 megapixel file sizes, and when you punch into APS-C, you're still getting 26 megapixels. And this for me was huge, because it's almost like buying two cameras in one that are both 26 megapixels. The second major concern I had was with the dynamic range that you would get. When I'm shooting weddings, quite often you're in really varying light conditions, you'll have deep shadows, bright highlights, and a camera with good dynamic range can often save you. I've certainly found with the Sony A7 III that I initially shot weddings on, and then the A7 IV, the dynamic range on those cameras has saved me a good few important shots before, especially when using flash and you accidentally way overexpose the subject, but you can pull it back and still save certain shots. That was a big concern. I'd noticed 1 or 2 videos that showed the dynamic range on the R5 to be really good, and I was thinking, really? Because again, that demanding a sensor, I was a little bit unsure on that. But I ended up deciding to bite the bullet and go for it. And in this video, we're going to look at a few test shots I did as soon as I got the camera, as I'm sure we all do. Just random ones around my garden and my house. I'm looking at how does the camera perform in the medium raw mode. So they're all medium raw, but I do have some that are punched into APS-C mode and others that are in the normal medium raw mode. And to be honest, my first impressions here were really, really impressed. I'll just fire through these images. Most of them are, I've just slapped a wedding preset on. Most of them are at f1.4 on the Sony 35mm G Master. In APS-C mode, you're getting maybe a 52.5mm field of view, and I'm going to do a few tests with this camera comparing the 35mm in crop mode to the 50 1.4 G Master on an A7 IV, and seeing if there's a significant difference there, because my thinking is how I would use this on a wedding day if I'm doing hybrid shooting would be have the 35mm on there and be able to jump into APS-C mode whenever I wanted. So the outdoor shots are all pretty much at 1.4 and ISO 100, but indoor now we can see that this shot here is taken at ISO 1250, and I've also got the RAWs straight out of camera for these as well, and at 1250 I don't see much noise there at all. I have on my edit opened up the shadows quite a bit, dropped the highlights quite a bit as well, so trying to see what the sort of range is there. Not extensive tests, but next shot 2000 on the ISO, and I can start to see a little bit of noise here, but again, this is another reason I prefer primes, is I think if you're shooting at 1.4 and that background melts away, I don't think the noise is as noticeable or as prevalent in an image. Where I think actually, because I've opened up the shadows on my one, you can see the noise a little bit more, but it's still absolutely fine. If you told me this was shot on an A7 IV, I don't think I would be going, God, that's quite noisy. Up at 5000 ISO here, and again, the image looks pretty clean overall to me. The RAW straight out of camera. Again, there is some noise in there, but it's sharp. It's at f2 this one, so I closed it down a wee bit just to get my ISO up. So yeah, really impressed. And then what I also fancied trying out, which I'm going to do more in-depth comparisons on this, was looking at using my Samyang 24mm lens on here and seeing what that gave me, because if it turns out that the R5's really good, I might, for any photo jobs I have, end up using the R5 as my wide lens, and then my second body being my telephoto lens. And my 24 lens, I really love that lens. Sometimes 24 is a bit wide, so having that APS-C 35 could be really, really handy. And this one here, 24mm, 1.8, ISO 5000. Again, opened up the shadows and dropped the highlights. And in the shadow areas, the out of focus areas, yes, I can see a fair bit of noise here. But the actual center of the image where I've focused is absolutely fine. Got no issues with that whatsoever, and no additional sharpening was added to any of these images either. One or two with the Samyang 24mm, but in APS-C mode. This one dropped to ISO 4000, but again, very happy with the sharpness here, which makes me think this could be viable in terms of what I've discussed earlier. And then a couple from outside. Again on the Samyang here, 24mm, so I could jump back to the similar shot from the 35GM and see if you can notice any significant difference there. And I think I've also got one of the closed pegs closer up. Again, 24mm 1.8, but in APS-C mode here, and can compare that to the G Master 35 at that same location as well. I think you'll probably think that, and I would tend to agree, the bokeh is much better on the G Master, but I don't think it's significantly different to someone then looking at it as a client and going, oh yeah, you've shot that at 1.8, not 1.4. So overall, I'm really quite pleased with what my initial findings are on this camera, and I'm going to be doing quite a few different videos on this. So if you'd like to see how I find this camera throughout the rest of 2024 and the hybrid weddings I've got, then you know what to do. Like, subscribe, leave me a comment if you've got any questions, and yeah, look forward to seeing how I get on with this A7R5. Thanks for watching.